Last week. Do you guys remember what gobos are? Gobos or templates are the texture that you can put in a light. That, like, if you wanted to create the idea of leaves or windows or something like that, you can put that pattern. Let me just kind of write that down. So, gobo, we might call it a pattern, and we might call it a template. But those are all the idea that you're putting texture in the light. Texture is something that, depending on the light, if it's a good light, it can be something very, very crisp and clear. Like you could say "Happy Birthday," that kind of thing. So gobos, basically, you can. It's usually they used to be just metal patterns, but now we can make them out of glass and put them in the newer lights. And the glass can be pretty much like a photo. They get much more expensive, but you can basically put a photo in a light. So that's the idea there. So if you look at that top representation, the channels there, it kind of shows you where the audience is. If you look at the bottom of that square, it shows you where you are sitting as audience members right now. And the box that we're looking at right now is a representation of this theater, this studio theater that we're in right now. So you can see that this one is showing, and you would make one of these that's specific to your space that you're designing for. So right now we're going to pretend we're designing for the studio space. And you can see that there's an arrow or an angle for, we talked about the very basic directions last time. We talked about front light, side light, back light, all that kind of stuff. So this kind of lays it out nicely for you guys and reiterates those directions that we were talking about. You can see that there's kind of the combination, there's the 45s of what we were talking about. Like you can see the left front light and the right front light. Sometimes people will call those a diagonal front or a diagonal back light, that kind of thing. So it's just the idea that we're kind of combining the angle and switching it a little bit. All right, the numbers that you see in the parentheses are channel numbers. These are the channel numbers that we're going to use for the final project. One of the things I want you guys to get the idea of is that a channel is merely what you're naming or calling a light, how you want to organize it or control it. What's another good way of describing a channel, Ian? I always have kids have a hard time with this concept. It's the name or the number of how you want to organize the light.
Yeah, it's your number. Really is what it boils down to. It's what you want to call it. And if you really wanted to, you could call him Fred, but there'd be a lot of typing in the board. You know, but it's the number that we assign. Because if you look up above you, all of these tails that are hanging down have numbers, right? They start at 1 in the corner over there. It finishes with 12, then we go 13 to something that's not 24. It's even more than that. And so those numbers are pre-assigned. These are numbers that you get to reassign to any value you want. So this light that's on right now is your channel 1. But over here it's plugged into 96. You get to plug it into 96, but you get to call it 1 so you can remember what it is. Because if you had to remember that this was 96 and that one was 93, and the one down there in the corner was 72, and what was that middle one again? Was it 48 or 50? You don't. Right, so we reassign them numbers that make sense to us.
Yeah.
So for your plot, I think it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So
right?
Basically,
In an order that you
the numbers in parentheses will apply to our final project. But for the beginning project, for the first 2 projects, channel 81 is actually channel 1. Channel 82 is actually channel 2. Channel 83 is actually channel 3. 84 is channel 4. You can see that the top light, what would be directly over that X, the X in the center, just so you guys know, let's think of it this way. Let me push our little lighting dummy out to where our X would be in our space. So the X in the center is our actor or our figure that we would be lighting. So for our classroom purposes, for the most part, our figure will be roughly center. So that X is center line center for our lovely lighting model. So the top and back light, channels 85 and 86, or what are going to be channels 5 and 6 for your first two projects, are kind of drawn behind it because it's kind of hard to write it right over the top and see what you've written. So just kind of make a note about that. But this idea is that you can do a very simple drawing, lay out what your channels are, and kind of figure out where you want to put your color. How do you envision what you see? So one of the examples I want you guys to think about is those photos you sent me. So your first assignment was to send me a photo of motivated lighting. So this is one of the keys you can use to help you kind of figure out what your plot needs to be for lighting that scene. So your photo that you sent me is a scene, basically, for our purposes. So down below you can see that there's some examples. In the examples you can see that they haven't used every single light that we have for the classroom. Like that first one only has 4 arrows. So they've chosen 4 lights to help recreate the lighting effect that they want to create. You can see that the top left arrow says no color, plus gobo, window. So they're not using any color in the light, they're just using the incandescent source of light that we're using in class, and they're putting a window gobo in it. And that's going to be their source. They made themselves a little note that says sunlight. So that's probably what we call, for this person, one of the things you're going to want to know, especially if you do film and television, are the terms key and fill. The key light is your main or brightest light, usually. As I write.